They say the body never lies. You can fake a smile. You can fake a tear. You can even fake a polygraph test if you know how to control your breathing and clench your sphincter at the right moment. But you cannot fake the tension in your trapezius muscle. You cannot hide the knots that form along your spine when you are carrying the weight of a guilty conscience. My name is Elias Thorne. For 20 years, I carried a badge and a gun in Chicago. Now, I carry a bottle of jojoba oil and a folding table. I am a licensed massage therapist. That is what it says on the certificate hanging in my small office. But that is just the surface, the layer of skin everyone sees. Underneath the fascia, deep in the tissue, I am still what I always was. A hunter. A private investigator who specializes in places where the police cannot go or where rich people do not want them to go. I am currently on assignment at the Alta Vetta Retreat. It is a fortress of glass and timber, perched 6,000 feet up in the Rockies. It is the kind of place where a week's stay costs more than most people earn in a year. The air is thin, the snow is pristine, and the secrets are buried deep under the permafrost. I was hired by the board of directors. They had a problem, not a crime, they insisted, just a statistical anomaly. 3 accidents in 6 months, a skier hitting a tree on a clear run, a drowning in the heated therapy pool, a fall from a balcony. All ruled accidental, all unrelated. But insurance premiums were spiking, and the wealthy clientele was getting jittery. They wanted a ghost. Someone to watch the staff and the guests, without raising an alarm. Who is more invisible than the massage therapist? I am the furniture. I am the pair of hands you trust with your naked back. You close your eyes, you drift away, and you forget I am in the room. You talk, you vent, you reveal yourself. It was Tuesday when the 4th accident began to take shape. I was in treatment room 3. It has a view of the valley, a wall of glass overlooking a drop that would turn a human body into abstract art. On my table was Julian Vane, tech mogul, 45 years old. He built an empire on data mining, selling people's privacy for profit. Now, he was paying me $300 an hour to knead the stress out of his lower back. Higher, Elias. Right under the shoulder blade, Vane grunted. His voice was muffled by the face cradle. I pressed my thumb into his rhomboid. The muscle was rock hard. It felt like twisted wire. This wasn't just computer hunch. This was fear. The body engages the fight or flight response, and the muscles armor up to protect the vital organs. Vane was armored like a tank. Rough week? I asked. My voice was low, practiced. The voice of a therapist, not a cop. You have no idea, Vane muttered. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. Vultures. All of them. Even up here? I thought this was a sanctuary. There is no sanctuary, he said, and I felt a spasm in his latissimus dorsi. Not when you have what I have. Even the snow has eyes. He went silent after that. I worked down his spine, using my forearm to strip the muscle. I could smell the eucalyptus oil, the faint scent of sulfur from the hot springs outside, and something else. Something faint on Vane's skin. It smelled like almonds, but sharper, metallic. I assumed it was a cologne or a hair product. I finished the session at 4 o'clock. Vane sat up, looking dazed. He wrapped his robe around himself tight, shivering despite the heat of the room. Drink plenty of water, I said, reciting the script. It helps flush the toxins. Toxins, he repeated, staring at his hands. Yeah, I'm full of them. He left the room. I began changing the linens. The routine is soothing. Strip the table. Wipe the vinyl. Fresh sheets. It resets the room. It resets the mind. I was folding a towel when I heard the sound. It was a heavy thud, followed by the shattering of porcelain. I didn't run. Running causes panic. I walked briskly out of the treatment room and down the hallway toward the locker rooms. The door to the men's changing area was ajar. Julian Vane was on the floor. He was clutching his chest, his face a mask of purple and gray. A ceramic water pitcher lay in shards around him. His mouth was open, gasping for air that wouldn't come. I dropped to my knees beside him. "Mr. Vane." No response. His eyes were wide, staring at the ceiling, staring at nothing. I checked for a pulse. It was there, but it was erratic. A hummingbird trapped in a cage. Then it stopped. I started CPR. My hands, usually trained to soothe, were now trying to force a heart to beat. Crack ribs, compress chest, breathe, repeat. I shouted for help. The staff came running. The defibrillator was brought out. We shocked him. Once, twice, nothing. Julian Vane was dead before the ambulance even left the station in the valley below. The resort doctor, a man named Eris, who looked more like a catalog model than a physician, called it a massive myocardial infarction, a heart attack. He was high stress, Aris told me later, as we stood in the staff break room. Overweight, high blood pressure. It was a ticking time bomb. It's tragic, but not suspicious. I nodded, sipping lukewarm coffee. Tragic, I agreed, but my hands remembered. I looked at my thumbs. I remembered the texture of Vane's back. I remembered the smell on his skin, and I remembered something else. When I was working on his neck, right at the base of the skull, I had felt a small bump. A puncture mark? An insect bite? I hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now, paired with the suddenness of his death, and that faint metallic almond smell, the body never lies. Julian Vane's body had been tense, yes, but it hadn't felt like a dying body. It felt like a frightened body. I went back to treatment room 3. The cleaners hadn't been in yet. I looked at the face cradle. I looked at the floor, and then I saw it, tucked under the edge of the baseboard, almost invisible against the dark wood. A small, clear plastic cap. The kind that covers the needle of a syringe. I picked it up with a tissue. It was tiny, insignificant, but in a room that was sterilized between every client, it was a screaming siren. Julian Vane didn't have a heart attack. Someone had helped him along. The game had changed. I wasn't just watching for liability issues anymore. I was hunting a killer who was trapped in this snow globe with me, and they had just claimed their 4th victim. The Alta Vetta Retreat is designed to be a labyrinth of luxury. The corridors are long and curved, lined with cedar and slate. The lighting is always dim, mimicking a perpetual twilight. It is meant to be relaxing, but after Vane's death, it felt claustrophobic. I needed to move fast, but I had to move slow. That is the paradox of my cover. If I started asking sharp questions, the killer would know. I had to remain the masseur, the listener, the neutral party. I pocketed the needle cap and went to the staff quarters. I needed a list of everyone who had access to the treatment rooms before Vane's appointment. The schedule was digital. I accessed it on the terminal in the break room. The system was simple enough to bypass with the credentials the board had given me. Who was in the spa wing between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m.? There was me. There was Elena, the head of housekeeping. There was Marco, the ski instructor who doubled as a personal trainer. And there was a guest named Sarah Jenkins. Sarah Jenkins was an anomaly. Most people here were loud with their money. They wore brands like Armor. Sarah was quiet. She was a librarian from Seattle, or so her file said. She had won her stay in a charity raffle. She didn't fit the demographic. She wore plain wool sweaters and spent her days reading by the fire in the main lounge. But the logs showed her keycard had accessed the spa changing rooms 10 minutes before Vane arrived. Why would a librarian be lurking in the men's locker room area? I decided to start with the staff. Marco. Marco was a classic type. Handsome in a rugged, predictable way. He had the charm of a golden retriever and about the same amount of foresight. I found him in the gym, wiping down a treadmill. Sad business about Mr. Vane, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Marco didn't look up. Guy was a heart attack waiting to happen. Did you see him on the slopes, skiing in jeans? Ate steak every night. Rich guys think they can buy health. He seemed worried about something during our session. I lied. Mentioned he was afraid of someone here. Marco stopped wiping. He looked at me, his eyes narrowing. Afraid? Of who? Didn't say. Just said the snow has eyes. Marco laughed, but it was a dry, hollow sound. The snow has eyes? That's poetic. Look, Elias, people here are paranoid. They have too much money and too much time. Vane was probably dodging a subpoena or an angry ex-wife. Don't read into it. You were in the spa area around 3, right? Yeah. Stocking towels. Why? Just wondering if you saw anyone unusual. Marco hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second, his gaze flicked to the left. A micro-expression of concealment. No, just the usual ghosts. I gotta go, Elias. Ski lesson in 20. He brushed past me. I watched him go. He was hiding something. But was it murder? Or just the petty theft and drug dealing that usually happens in places like this? I needed to get into Vane's room. The police from the county sheriff's office had come and gone. They accepted Dr. Eris's diagnosis. The body was moved. The room was sealed, technically, but the resort wanted it turned over for the next guest as soon as possible. Housekeeping was scheduled to clean it in an hour. I intercepted the cart. Elena was pushing it. She was a woman of 60, with hands made of iron and a face that revealed nothing. She ran the domestic side of the resort with military precision. Elena, I said, let me help you with the suite. I need to clear my head. She looked at me suspiciously. That is not your job, Elias. I know, but Vane died on my table. Well, almost. I feel responsible. I just want to say a prayer, clear the energy. You know how it is. Elena softened. She was superstitious. 5 minutes, then I clean. She unlocked the door to the presidential suite. I slipped inside. The room smelled of stale fear and expensive scotch. I didn't have much time. I went straight to the bathroom, the medicine cabinet. Empty. I checked the trash can. Empty. Housekeeping hadn't been here yet. So who cleared the room? I moved to the nightstand. There was a glass of water, half full, and a small notepad. I did the old trick, took a pencil from the desk and lightly shaded the top page. Indentations appeared. Asterisk, summit, 1,998. They know. Asterisk, summit, the summit accord, a business deal, a location. I heard the key card in the door. I ripped the page off, crumbled it into my pocket, and turned around just as Elena entered. Time is up, she said. Thank you, Elena. I walked out, my heart beating a steady rhythm against my ribs. Asterisk, summit, 1,998. Asterisk. I went back to my room and opened my laptop. I searched for Julian Vane and summit, and 1,998. The results were buried deep. Old news archives. Scanned microfiche. In 1998, a group of investors bought a massive tract of land in the Cascades. They planned a ski resort, but there was a problem. A small, existing community lived in the valley. There were legal battles, environmental protests. Then, a dam upstream failed. The valley was flooded. The community was wiped out. 12 people died. The land was deemed unstable for the original project, but perfect for a smaller, exclusive retreat. The Alta Vetta Retreat. The investors were a consortium. The names were shielded by shell companies, but I started digging into the board members of the current ownership. Julian Vane was a junior partner back then. The second victim, the drowning? A retired lawyer named Hensley. He was the legal counsel for the consortium. The skier who hit the tree? A man named Greaves. He was the structural engineer who signed off on the dam's safety. This wasn't random. This was a list. And there was one more name on the original investor list. A woman. Asterisk. Eleanor Vance. Asterisk. I froze. Eleanor Vance was currently a guest. She checked in 3 days ago. She was in suite 404. I grabbed my phone to call the front desk, to warn her to do something. But the phone in my room rang first. Elias? It was Dr. Aris. His voice was tight. We need you in the lobby. Now. What happened? It's Mrs. Vance. She fell from the terrace. I closed my eyes. I was too slow. The hunter was losing the race. The terrace of the Alta Vetta hangs over the precipice like a diving board into the abyss. It was covered in a thin sheet of black ice. Eleanor Vance lay on the rocks 20 feet below, on a lower outcropping. She was broken. By the time I got there, the staff had already set up a perimeter. Guests were gawking from behind the glass doors, holding their cocktails, whispering. I looked at the scene. The railing was waist-high. Eleanor was an elderly woman, frail. It was plausible that she slipped, but I don't believe in coincidences. Not 3 of them. Not 4. I managed to get close to the body before the paramedics hoisted her up. I pretended to check for vitals, though it was clearly hopeless. I touched her neck, not to feel a pulse, but to feel the muscle. The sternocleidomastoid was flaccid, but the skin was wet. Not with snow, but with oil. I brought my fingers to my nose. Lavender. And underneath it, that same metallic, bitter almond scent. It was a paralytic, a transdermal toxin. Someone had applied it to her, or sprayed it on her. It numbed the muscles, caused disorientation. She didn't just slip. She lost control of her own legs. She was a puppet whose strings had been cut. I stood up and looked at the crowd. Dr. Aris was there, looking pale. Marco was there, looking bored. Elena was there, making the sign of the cross. And Sarah Jenkins, the librarian. She was standing at the very back, near the shadow of a pillar. She wasn't looking at the body. She was looking at me. Her eyes were dark, intelligent, and completely devoid of shock. I needed to talk to her, but I couldn't just interrogate a guest. I needed her on my table. I went to the front desk. Sarah Jenkins, I said to the receptionist. She has a complimentary massage in her package, right? The charity winner perks? Yes, the receptionist said. But she hasn't booked anything. Call her. Tell her we have a slot open this evening. Tell her it's expiring. Get her in. An hour later, Sarah Jenkins walked into my treatment room. She was small, wiry. Her hair was gray, pulled back in a severe bun. She wore no makeup. She moved with a silent economy of motion that reminded me of a cat or a soldier. I don't usually like people touching me, she said as she laid face down on the table. I'll be gentle, I said. Just relaxation. I began with the effleurage, long, gliding strokes to warm up the tissue. Her back was a map of scars. Not physical scars, but tension patterns. Her shoulders were pulled up so high they were almost touching her ears. Her lower back was a sheet of steel. You hold a lot of weight, I said. Life is heavy, she replied into the face cradle. You're a librarian? That's right. Must be a dangerous job. Your rhomboids are ready for a fight, she chuckled. A dry, rasping sound. Books are heavy, Elias. I worked my thumb into the knot near her spine. I decided to push. Terrible business about Mrs. Vance, I said. The muscle under my thumb didn't just tighten. It jumped. A galvanic skin response. Tragic, she said. The word was flat, and Mr. Vane yesterday. Bad luck comes in threes. they say. Or 4s, she whispered. I paused. 4s? There was a skier last month, and a drowning before that. People talk. You seem to know a lot about the history here. I read. That's what librarians do. I moved to her neck. I felt the pulse in her carotid artery. It was slow. Too slow. She was controlling it. You were near the locker rooms when Vane died, I said softly. Silence. The room was only filled with the sound of the wind howling outside and the soft new age music from the speakers. I was looking for the restroom, she said. That's a long way to go for a restroom. She turned her head to the side, looking at me with one eye. Are you a messer or a detective, Elias? I'm whatever the client needs me to be. She smiled. It was a cold smile. Maybe I need you to be quiet. I finished the massage in silence, but my mind was racing. She fit the profile, the proximity, the lack of emotion, the physical capability, but the motive? I needed to know who she really was. When she left, I grabbed the glass of water she had sipped from. I wrapped it in a towel. Fingerprints. I had a buddy back in Chicago who could run them off the record. It would take a few hours. In the meantime, I had to find the source of the toxin, the metallic almond smell. I went to the supply room. Rows of essential oils. Lavender, eucalyptus, peppermint, sandalwood. I started opening them one by one, sniffing. Nothing. Then I saw the mixing station, the bowls where the staff created custom blends. There was a small trash bin underneath. I dug through it. Oily paper towels, broken droppers, and a small, brown glass vial with no label. I uncorked it. Bingo. Bitter almonds. Cyanide? No, too volatile. DMSO mixed with a muscle relaxant? A derivative of curare? Whatever it was potent. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy boots. I ducked behind the shelving unit. The door opened. It was Dr. Eris. He walked straight to the mixing station. He looked agitated. He began rummaging through the drawers, then the trash bin. He was looking for the vial I was holding in my hand. Dr. Eris? Was he the killer, or was he cleaning up a mess? He cursed under his breath, slammed the drawer, and left. I waited 5 minutes, then slipped out. I went back to my room. My phone buzzed. It was my contact in Chicago. Asterisk. Prince came back. No match in the criminal database, but we got a hit on a civil registry. Sarah Jenkins is an alias. Her real name is Sarah Miller. Asterisk. Miller. The name didn't ring a bell. Asterisk. One more thing. Asterisk, the text read. Asterisk, she's listed as the sole survivor of the Echo Valley flood in 1998. She was 19, lost her parents and 2 brothers. Asterisk. The pieces slammed together. The motive, the timing, the victims. Sarah Miller was the avenging angel. She was hunting the people who drowned her family for a ski resort. But there was a problem. Sarah was physically capable, yes. But the medical knowledge? The specific toxin? The access to the supply room? Sarah was a guest. She couldn't walk into the supply room without a keycard. She had a partner. Someone on the inside. I thought back to the schedule. Who else was there? Elena. Elena, who had been here since the place opened. Elena, who ran the housekeeping. Elena, who had access to every room, every towel, every oil bottle. Elena, whose last name I had never asked. I ran to the staff directory on the wall. Asterisk. Elena Miller. Asterisk. They weren't partners. They were family. Aunt and niece? Mother and daughter? It didn't matter. They were killing the board of directors one by one. And there was one target left. Dr. Aris. He was the medical director back then. He likely signed the falsified health reports for the dam workers, or covered up the deaths. I checked the time. 9 p.m. Dr. Eris had a nightly ritual. He took a private sauna session to decompress. The sauna, heat, vasodilation, the perfect place for a heart to fail, or for a toxin to absorb rapidly through open pores. I grabbed my master key and ran. The sauna is located in the basement level, carved into the natural rock. It is a place of steam and silence. When I burst through the double doors, the heat hit me like a physical wall. The air was thick, opaque with steam. "Dr. Eris?" I called out. No answer. I moved deeper into the fog. I saw the glass door of the main sauna. Through the condensation, I could see a figure slumped on the bench. I ripped the door open. Dr. Eris was conscious, but barely. He was sliding off the bench. His skin was beet red. He was clawing at his throat, and standing over him, holding a ladle of water, was Elena. She looked at me. Her face was calm, sad, but calm. "He needs to sweat it out," she said. "The guilt, it needs to come out." "Elena, step away," I said, moving into the small wooden room. The heat was searing. "It's over. We know about the flood. We know about Sarah." "Sarah?" Elena smiled. "Sarah is a good girl. She came to watch, to witness. But the hands are mine. Elias, you know this. You work with your hands too. You know what it takes to fix something that is broken. This isn't fixing," I said, grabbing Eris by the arm and dragging him toward the door. He was heavy, dead weight. "This is murder." Elena didn't attack me. She didn't have a weapon. She just stood there, holding the ladle. "They drowned my son," she whispered. "My beautiful boy. He was 6. They opened the floodgates to save their construction site, and they washed him away like garbage." Eris knew. He signed the death certificates. Accidental drowning. Natural disaster. She poured the water onto the hot rocks. The steam hissed, an angry, serpentine sound. "The law forgot us, Elias. So I made my own law. It ends tonight," I said. I pulled Eris out into the cool air of the locker room. He collapsed on the tiles, gasping, retching. I turned back to Elena. She was still in the sauna. "Come out, Elena." She shook her head. "It's warm in here, like the summer before the water came." She sat down on the bench. She took a small bottle from her apron pocket to the vial of bitter almond oil and poured the entire contents onto the rocks. The chemical hit the heat. A cloud of toxic vapor exploded into the small room. "No!" I lunged forward, trying to grab her, but the fumes hit me instantly. My eyes burned. My throat closed up. I coughed, retreating, slamming the glass door shut to seal the poison inside. "Elena!" I shouted, pounding on the glass. She looked at me through the swirling, poisonous fog. She placed her hands on her knees, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. I watched her slump forward. It took less than a minute. I dragged Eris to the emergency exit, kicking the door open to let the winter air flood in. I dialed 911. Then I sat in the snow, watching the steam rise from the vents, disappearing into the night sky. The aftermath was messy. Police, coroners, lawyers. The Alta Vetta Retreat was shut down. The investigation into the 1,998 flood was reopened. The Summit Accord was exposed. The surviving board members were indicted. Sarah Miller was arrested in the lobby. She didn't fight. She didn't speak. She just looked at me as they cuffed her. "Did she suffer?" Sarah asked me. "No," I lied. "It was quick. She chose it." Sarah nodded. "Then it's done." I packed my bags 3 days later. The resort was empty. The silence was absolute. I went to the treatment room one last time. I packed my table, my oils. I looked at my hands. They were steady, but they felt heavy. We like to think that justice is a clean line, a set of scales, but it's not. It's a knot in the muscle. a tangle of scar tissue. You can rub it, you can press on it, you can try to smooth it out. But sometimes, the damage is too deep. Sometimes, the only way to release the tension is to break the whole thing down. I walked out of the Alta Vetta, leaving the ghosts behind in the snow. I'm going back to Chicago. I have a client on Tuesday. Lower back pain, sciatica, simple stuff, or so I hope. Because now, every time I touch a stranger's back, every time I feel that tightness under the skin, I wonder, what are you hiding? What sins are buried in this muscle memory? And I wonder if I'll ever be able to just give a massage again, without looking for the pressure point that kills.